Alex Merced. We're getting just started with the live stream, so I'm going to give a minute for people to kind of join the live stream. So I'll give a moment for everyone to kind of just like join in, and then we will get started. So going once, going twice. But yeah, basically what I'm going to be doing during this presentation is I am going to be talking about this presentation here from data swamp to strategic asset, where I'm going to be talking about the value of Dremio's AI functions. Okay, and basically the value they provide to you in building a data lake house. Okay, so I might as well just kind of move forward with that. And again, make sure that if you are watching this, that you follow me. You can follow me by going to alexmerced.com. There you can find all the links to all the things that I do. Also, I'm going to be talking a lot about Dremio, so make sure that you also sign up for the Dremio free trial. So head over to dremio.com/get started and try out that free trial. Okay. Now, with that, let's continue on. Okay. So, bottom line is this: when it comes to the data lake house, the data lake house is this pattern that we've been embracing, where we're starting to use our data lake more as our central data warehouse. In a lot of the tools that we have, like the Apache Iceberg and Apache Iceberg catalogs, all of this works really well with our structured data. So, data that's already kind of structured into columns and rows. The problem is the vast majority of our data oftentimes sits in unstructured data. So they're PDFs, they're documents, they're images, they're text files that aren't something that I can just immediately sort of query and make use of. But it contains a lot of critical information. So typically what happens is you end up having sort of a process like this where you have all that data sitting on object storage, and then you have to kind of do all these sort of complex pipelines. So outside of like your actual tools where you actually run your queries and power your dashboards and power your AI agents, you're separately probably creating all these sort of AI based pipelines that go, or other types of pipelines that go and they read these documents, and based on what they see in the documents, create the structured data that you then load into your data lakehouse or your data warehouse. But again, it's a separate process. It's not integrated into it. So you need sort of a special team that's just kind of like focusing on that. Okay. And this gets really expensive really quick, really complicated. So now somebody who needs, some sentiment analysis on images, they have to go submit a ticket to that data science team who's going to build those pipelines, or that data engineering team that's going to build those pipelines to then do that sentiment analysis and then deliver you the result of that as a structured table. What if that end-line business user could actually do that? What if they could actually go query that unstructured data right off the bat without having to necessarily wait weeks for a separate team to kind of put that together? Okay, so this is where we get into what Dremio offers. Okay, Dremio offers AI functions, and these AI functions make it much easier to work with your unstructured data, because basically they say, hey, I want to do a thing. I have a question that I want to ask, but the data is not in columns and rows, but I do know it's in these PDFs. I do know it's in these images. So using this prompt, using this question that I'm asking, can you go in there and take the data that I have here and turn it into that structured data that I need? Okay. So this is where Dremio's AI functions become really useful, because Dremio really speeds up this whole building a data lakehouse place in a lot of ways. One, you don't have to wait till you get all your data in your data lake under Apache Iceberg. While we definitely recommend that your data does mostly get put into Apache Iceberg on your data lake, you can start working with your data in Dremio right away by connecting Dremio to your databases, your data warehouses on day one. Okay, you don't have to have the headaches of managing a data lakehouse's performance, whether it's optimizing tables, optimizing queries. Dremio can do that all automatically. And on top of that, you don't have to create all these separate processes to work with your unstructured data, because you can do that within Dremio using Dremio's AI functions. So bottom line, a lot of these friction points that usually require you to kind of go external to your data lakehouse and create all these sort of side things, which is still, again, an improvement over what came before, but we're making it even better. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. So basically in Dremio, you have these four functions that are going to help you work with AI and with your unstructured data. So the key thing here is the list files function. The list files function, what it does, it takes a list of files in a folder in an object storage bucket and turns it into a table of like table locations or file locations. So I can say, hey, I have this folder of PDF files. Give me a list of all the files in that folder. Okay. Now using this function, I can then pass that list to any of these other functions. Okay. Most of the time, you're going to be using that with AI generate, because AI generate is the thing that actually extracts the structured data. So you're going to say, hey, you know what? I have all these files in this bucket, these PDF files. Can you extract data that looks like this schema? You pass a particular schema to AI generate, and then it's going to go iterate through the files that you gave it and say, okay, hey, based on this file, do I have data that matches the schema? If so, then returns that data. But once you have that data, you may have a record of data and you want to create a text, or you may have another table altogether that you want to create like a summary of. This is where AI complete comes in, where basically you pass it. Usually, what you would do is you'd pass it all the values for all the columns in a particular record, and then have like a summary column that summarizes all the data in that column. Okay, so that way you have like this nice text summary in a column. And then AI classify would be for like a sentiment analysis. So you might have like you might have extracted the data from a bunch of surveys, and then you want to say, hey, is the data from these surveys really like positive, negative? And then you can use AI classify and then pass each record to then create like a column that's like sentiment, and then it'll classify as like negative or positive. So that way you can determine, okay, hey, how many of these surveys really said something nice about our product or something negative about our product without having to kind of manually kind of put them in both categories. So this allows you to leverage AI for lots of really cool things. So it allows you to work with unstructured data and leverage AI in working with your structured and unstructured data. Okay. So again, we mentioned that we have list files. List files again takes a bucket. So in the case, what you usually would do is you would have like an S3 or an Azure or a Google object storage source connect to the Dremio. So when you see this like ampersand, not ampersand, the at symbol, that's saying, hey, at this source, so cookbooks would be, let's say, the S3 source, and then you're saying, okay, here's the path to where that folder is in that S3 source. And then here I'm saying, hey, you know what, I don't want to look at all the files in that folder, only the files that actually end in .pdf. So then what it returns to me is a list of PDFs in that folder. Wonderful. So again, once I have that, I can then pass it to a function like AI generate. So here I see with AI generate, I say, hey, I want to extract the recipe name and cuisine type. Okay. And basically I'm saying, okay, here's the schema. So you're passing it a row, which is essentially like you're describing the schema by giving it sort of the value types for a row, and saying for each file that's going to be in the cookbook's recipe, I want you to return me a recipe name that's text and a cuisine type that is text. Okay. And now what's going to do, it's going to iterate over all the folders and then create, actually what it does, it creates a column that's typically referred to as extracted. In this case, they called it recipe info. So they call the column recipe info, and that's going to be actually a struct column. So you're going to have this struct with these records. So you can see here, it's just like file path. Okay. And that's just because like the file function also returns a struct for each file with the details. But basically you'll be able to then flatten that struct later on. Okay, so now let's say, hey, I want to classify that data. Okay, so now I have the data from that previous deal. Okay, and I say, hey, I want to take the data in my cooking instructions table. Okay, and I want to classify that as either beginner, intermediate, or expert. And we're going to call this new column difficulty level. And that's what it does. It's going to take the information in my cooking instruction, each record for my cooking instructions. Okay, it's then going to pass or take the value of cooking instructions and then say, hey, put it into one of these categories and return the value. And you get something like this. So like, hey, here's a recipe, creamy tomato soup. Based on its instructions, it's a beginner, and so forth. Okay. Pretty cool. And again, this is all stuff you can do right out of the box. Like right now, if you have not tried Dremio's free trial, you should, because you can try this today. Okay. Pretty easily. Just all you have to do is just head over to Dremio.com/get started. And over there at Dremio.com/get started, you can sign up. Again, no credit card up front, no need to bring your own infrastructure. Everything is provided for you, so you can actually start getting hands-on, writing queries, connecting your data, working with all this stuff day one. Okay, and again, you also got the built-in AI agent that can actually help you write this SQL, that can also help you build visualizations. So basically, you have a lot of power at your fingertips, regardless of what your technical level is. Okay. So we still got one more function to show you. Then we've got like AI complete. Okay, and basically what you can do is you can pass it, particular detail or pass it like all the values in a particular row, and it can give you a summary. So you can say, hey, like here's the name of the dish, pass me a summary of that dish, and then basically the AI generates a nice little text summary or a completion describing that thing. So like right here, you can see it says write an appetizing menu description for, and then it gives you the dish name, and then here we have the menu description. Okay, so these are all functions you can leverage in Dremio to working with your structured and unstructured data. Okay, but the bottom line is that this saves you a lot of time in a lot of ways. Less ETL pipelines, okay? Just by using Dremio, you're reducing your ETL pipelines because you don't have to move all your data, and you can start working with your data even before you ever move it. Of course, you still want to kind of eventually get to an iceberg lakehouse. I'm always going to recommend that because Dremio has a lot of other really cool bells and whistles once you get there. But you can start getting the value of Dremio on day one by connecting to where your data is now. Okay, it's not a, hey, you got to do this migration before you get any value out of Dremio. You get value out of Dremio day one. Okay, and then Dremio is going to run, but also you're reducing ETL pipelines you have when working with your unstructured data, like the separate pipelines you had to turn your unstructured data to structured data to do analytics with. Well, now that can just be done from Dremio, and that can be done on the fly as needed. Okay, and you're not necessarily creating data copies because Dremio does a lot of this stuff using SQL views, and Dremio has its own under the hood ways that it optimizes those SQL views, so you don't have to worry about thinking about, hey, should this be a physical table, should this be a view? You just make sure that all your raw data is connected to Dremio, and Dremio will figure out all the performance stuff. Dremio is super scalable. It's a massively parallel data processing system, and basically can scale infinitely based on rules that you set. So that way you can say, hey, what size engines do you want? How many replicas they should have? When they should shut off? All that kind of stuff. But again, it's not just providing you scalable analytics, but it's providing you scalable analytics on all of your data across databases, data warehouses, data lake houses. And when it comes to your data on your data lakes, it's no longer just your structured data, the data in those Parquet, CSV, JSON files, but also all your unstructured data in PDF files, text files, etc. You now have the ability to access all of it and work with all of it at your fingertips with Dremio. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can go experience it by going to dremio.com/get started to go try out that free trial. And if you haven't tried it, really, again, it's free. Again, we're providing everything. So let us show you a good time. Okay. Yeah. But again, this is more than a feature. It's now a core platform capability. Like with these features, and again, it's not just the AI functions. It's the integrated AI agent. It's the built-in MCP server that you can plug into any agentic client that you want. It is all the AI generation features to generate wikis, to generate tags, to generate explanations of your jobs and recommendations on how to optimize your SQL jobs. All these features have really taken Dremio to that next level. Okay, you basically now when you take a look at Dremio's evolution, you go from a federated query engine that provided you sort of great federated queries and the ability to really like speed up dashboards with features like reflections, to a full-on Iceberg Lakehouse platform with a lot of its first-class Iceberg features, such as autonomous Iceberg table optimization, a lot of really advanced caching that can be done with Iceberg tables, such as results caching, query plan caching, advanced reflections for Iceberg tables, where we can now refresh reflections incrementally and when the table updates. All these sort of advancements really make it a first-class platform for Apache Iceberg, but then all these new AI features really make it a full-on intelligent lakehouse platform, a full-on agentic lakehouse platform, where basically you're not having to worry about performance, you're not having to worry about where your data is, you're not having to worry about context because there's that built-in semantic layer. Everything's just kind of there. Okay, providing you essentially what a lot of different AI initiatives we're trying to build, providing it to you in a box that you can get set up within, 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, connecting a couple data sources, curating a few views, and generating some wikis doesn't take very long. But again, you can not take my word for it and go try it out yourself by heading to dremio.com/get started. Okay, and yeah, basically, just to summarize, don't forget, there's 80% of your data that's out there that's being unused, but oftentimes making use of it can be a lot of work, requires you to get other vendors, requires you to have separate teams. It can be a lot of work. But with Dremio, that becomes a lot easier because you now have functions like list files, AI generate, AI classify, AI complete that are going to really simplify your ability to access this hidden treasure trove of data that you have within the same sort of analytics, SQL-based analytics patterns that you're already used to, that you're already building BI dashboards off, that you're already building reporting off of, but do it in a much more sort of intelligent, agentic way. So again, if you haven't tried out Dremio, go do so. There's been a lot of new demo videos that I put on the Dremio YouTube channel, so head over to youtube.com/Dremio to go check out those demo videos. You can see some of these features in action, or you can, see some of the blogs that I posted recently over there at dremio.com/blog, so you can get hands-on and try out these features yourself. But with that, I'm going to wrap this up. I'll see you all later on. Have a great day and enjoy.